It's February now as I sit down to record this video. It's never too late to review your past year gone by, so I'm going to start off in March. So March started with that trip to Snowdonia, which you've hopefully seen. I spent 5 days and 5 nights up there. I'll put a link to the video if you've not seen it already, the playlist series and the kind of highlight video I made. I stayed in the area. I stayed in a hotel for 2 nights and then a bunkhouse for the last 3 nights. Really good experience overall. I got to walk in the Carnether, I got to walk in up Welsh Bod, I got to walk along the Arran Ridge. A lot of new places for me to experience and explore. The weather was great for the most part as well. And it snowed on the final night. Not rained, it snowed on the final night. So I woke up to this amazing wintry scene in the morning over the Whirlwind Mountains and had a beautiful stunning drive home through the valleys of mid Wales. Now I might try and go there again this year, but that's all to be said in a future video. April was pretty quiet, and partly because I caught COVID for the first time. I had pretty bad symptoms, the upset stomach, really bad cold, the fever, the shaking, all that sort of thing came in for about 5 or 6 days. So that was 1 week lost. May, there wasn't a lot going on either, although I did manage to get out and do one wild camp, my only official wild camp last year on the Quantock Hills. Made a video about that as well, put a link below or above for that video. June came around and I was going away to Aviemore for the first time in Scotland with Brunel Walking Group based in Bristol, and we had flights booked for the day, most of us. We were going to fly from Bristol Airport up to Inverness, but 5 days before the trip, EasyJet cancelled the flights. No real warning, just suddenly gone. There were no more flights that day scheduled to Inverness, so it was quite a kind of frantic panicking around of reorganising things, and I think most people they booked their flights to Edinburgh instead, and then got a 3-hour train journey to Aviemore. But I was invited by a guy called Rob to share the driving, what would be a 9-hour journey. He put me on his car insurance, which is a Ford Focus, but a bit newer, a bit nicer than mine. And it was actually alright. I was quite nervous about the whole experience, but yeah, 9-hour journey in total. A few stops along the way. Of course, we stopped at T-Base Services, the farm shop on the M6. Once you cross the M6 into Scotland, it's less busy, it's less chaotic on the roads. It's quite beautiful in places. You get some really nice forest scenery beside you, and yeah, I quite enjoyed doing that actually. I'd rather not fly if I can help it. I think only 3 people took the train from our group of like 25, 26 people, but it was, yeah, and we all got there. I think a few of us drove in the end. I think our car got there minutes after the train journey people, so it's quite a close run thing. It's quite interesting actually. The first few days we were there, we were blighted by like really strong gusts and winds, so even on lower ground around the locks, we were getting 40-mile-an-hour gusts, which just meant it was going to be too windy higher up. He was talking 60, 70 miles an hour gusts up there. It's just not worth the risk for a group of us. So we stayed close to the ground for the first 2 days around Aviemore. Did some walking around the locks. I went to, I think it was Boat of Garton on the train, then to the Osprey Centre in the woods. Walked a bit the Speyside Way as well. Some of them went off kayaking and paddleboarding in one of the nearby locks. Then on one day we got to the mountains. We started off just near Newtonmore, a bit further south I think it was. We managed to bag 3 Munros that day, including Carnjerrig, that's the one I can pronounce. And that was a really good day out. Again, still quite windy up on the higher ground, maybe 40 miles an hour gusts. And even though it was June, we were all wrapped up wearing buffs over our faces because it was just so cold at some points. But it was a great day out there. We finished before dark as well. On the last full day, we did a walk. We drove up to the Cairngorm Mountain Centre and we did a walk. I did a walk up to the Fecal Ridge, then on to Ben Macdui. Another group of us went off around Cairngorm itself and then on to Ben Macdui. That was a great day out. Really good sunshine for a change. Very little wind and breeze. There was still snow on top, of course, a little patch of snow in areas, but it was great to do the second highest mountain in the UK. I've not yet done Ben Nevis, but almost got there, right? One thing that's not very well known about me and my trip is that I suffered very badly with IBS the whole time. And that was partly from the stress of staying in the youth hostel. I was sharing a room with 4 people, 3 people, sorry, including myself. It's 4, and it was like 25 of us plus other people in the hostel. Just quite busy, queuing for food, queuing for toilets, queuing for showers, all that kind of stress I'm not really used to. I try and avoid. Plus, I had like I think I started a dodgy vegetarian burger in one of the local chip shops, so maybe that upset things further. And also, I'd made my sandwiches in advance of the trip, so I drove up there to Scotland with cheese and ham going off and turning in the car. Probably by the time I got there, the fridge wouldn't save it, so maybe I've been better off just not eating those and buying new and making new. But yeah, and the highlight of that experience though was doing an emergency poo. If you really, I wouldn't even really call it a poo. Somewhere beneath Ben McDewey. All I'm going to say is I sacrificed my woolly hat and bagged it up. I left no trace. That's all I'm going to say. I don't recommend the experience of IBS on a mountain or anywhere away from home. Also, after that trip, I came home feeling a little bit ill. A few days later, thought just a little bit of a cough, it's not too bad. Back to work for a day. Did a COVID test the next day, one of those lateral flow home tests, and I had COVID again. Second time in 3 months, could you believe it? Much milder symptoms this time, like a bad cold it was. It wasn't really flu-like at all. But then I was again staying home for a week, avoiding work, avoiding people. So that was welcome for the rest, but kind of a bit of a downer as well because the weather was quite nice at the time. And in July, we had a bit of a heat wave, didn't we, last year? I spent that weekend on Dartmoor with Bruno Walking Group again. We organised a camping trip for about 20 of us, and we stayed at a place called Hennock Hideaways, which is to the north of the moor. And yeah, it was a pretty nice campsite, pretty basic. Very hard to escape the heat there because even at 5 in the morning when the sun comes up, you're just roasting in your tent and it's just, yeah, it's sweltering at times, and it's like that all day till like 11 o'clock or so. We did some good walks around there. I remember walking around Lustley Cleeve, and I think we did Bowerman's Nose in the same walk. I can't recall seeing it very clearly. We did a coastal walk from Teignmouth down to Torquay and got the train back to the start. And we did a walk that I led from Postbridge to a local stone circle, up to a tor I can't remember, back over the East Dart River, and then back to the cars. I'd love to do that walk again sometime. Maybe I will try and film it this year. But yeah, it was a good weekend. Again, a little bit of IBS playing up for me because of the stress of like queuing for toilets and that sort of thing and whatever I was eating, but I survived the weekend and it was a good experience overall. So that was July's highlights. August, so I don't normally do a lot in August because it's the school holidays, kids and teachers are off crowding places and that sort of thing. But I managed to go for, I stayed at an official wild camping site in Devon. Went there with a friend. We only did the one night down there. On the way down, we stopped off on the River Exe, went for a swim. I started while swimming last year. I'm not a great swimmer or athlete by any sense, but I enjoy getting in the water in rivers and experiencing that for even a few minutes or half an hour. We had a really good swim down there actually, although the water levels were quite low because of the hot weather and the drought that's happening. But we did that, got to the campsite, and again it was really nice there. This is again another heatwave weekend, so it's quite unbearable at times. My car's got no aircon, so yeah, it's pretty hot with all the driving we did. But it was a nice site to use, pretty cheap, all legit. Had to bring your own water though, that's the only thing. Had to bring bottles of water or a big container of water. There's nothing available on site. And that was the highlight of August. Then we're in September. And the big thing there for me was going to the Lake District for the first time ever. So I spent 5 nights there, I think, 5 nights alone, across 2 different campsites. And a very, very wet first evening there, but after that, as you might have seen in my videos, I'll put a link there again. We got to walk around Helvellyn, I got to walk around Yomanas Coniston, the Fairfield Horseshoe, and the Langdale Pikes. Didn't quite make it to Scarfell Pike, but maybe next time. I'm really glad that I've finally been there and seen what it is for myself and the challenge that it offers. I'd love to go there again someday, but maybe not this year. We'll see. I'll talk about my future plans for this year in a future video fairly soon. But as for October, November, December, they were pretty quiet walking wise. Did a few group walks with friends and that sort of thing, but nothing too adventurous. I think that's it for now, really. A fairly brief overview. Didn't quite get to do everything I wanted to do or set out to do a year ago, but maybe I'll put those onto this year's list. Anyway, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time, and take care until then.